Hey guys, welcome back. It's UK here with another vid. First off, let me wish you a happy new year. I hope you had a good Christmas and all that entails, considering everything that's going on. This is a continuation of my games I have played series. I wasn't going to do D&D quite so soon because it's a fairly obvious one. But I thought, hey, why not? We've just done the World of Darkness series, so let's do my experiences with the D&D line next. And then we'll focus on the kind of esoteric and little known games I've done. Anyway, this is with regards to the basic D&D game. If you've English, if you have seen some of my older vids, you know that what got me into Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games back in the day was a book that my mum bought me when I was about 8 or 9, called What is Dungeons and Dragons, which I still have my original copy, although tattered and a bit worn, and I have a more up-to-date reprint as well. And it was a book written by 3, I think they were Oxford students, and it dealt with role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons specifically, and basic D&D more than advanced D&D. And I was hooked. I loved the idea, the concept of role-playing games, and this is what really got me into it. And D&D was the game that I always wanted to play. I didn't get a chance until I was about 14, I think, when somebody at school, actually my bully at school, oddly enough, gave me a copy of the player's book from the red box set Basic D&D, and absolutely loved it. It wasn't until probably the following year that I was able to buy the game, and I went out and I bought all 5 boxes. So you had red box was the intro, basically. It was, I think, levels 1 to 3, and was basically about dungeon crawls. Then you had, I think it was a blue box, which was the expert rules, which introduced the rules for wilderness. You had like a weird greeny colour box, which was companion rules, which went through I think the teen levels, and basically gave you, I think that was the one that gave you things like the Lord levels, i.e. once you hit like 9th, you could build a keep or a castle, and you had rules for governing it. Then you had the black box, which I think was called Masters or Master Rules, and that gave you up to like 20s and into the 30s, if I recall correctly. And then finally you had the gold box, which was the Immortals box set, where you go beyond mortality and you become a demigod, essentially. And that's when it all went a bit weird. So you had what was basically a basic version of first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules. And it was really easy to get your head around. It was very simple. It had some issues. It's in a way the same sort of issues that AD&D always had, which was if you played a demi-human, and there were 3 in basic D&D, you had elf, halfling, and dwarf. They were level capped, which never made any sense to me whatsoever. The idea that because they were effectively a multi-class type class, because you didn't have separate races. If you played a fighter, cleric, thief, or magic user, you were instantly human. Elf, dwarf, and halfling were your non-human classes. An elf was like a fighter mage. The dwarf was a better fighter, I think, and the halfling was like a fighter rogue. Yeah. And they were capped, and I think it didn't really work because I think they capped out somewhere in the expert rules. Whereas so if your human characters kept going, they could go all the way up and become immortals, but your other characters would never get as powerful and would probably get killed off. So no one ever bothered playing elves, dwarves, or halflings in basic D&D for us. And I really, in general, liked basic D&D. We played a fairly lengthy campaign, which was like a homebrew at school. Sometimes we played during the lunch hour. Sometimes we played after school. I basically remember drawing up a textbook-sized page with a crude map with some silly things in there and what have you, as you do when you're teenagers. But I remember it was the Immortals rules that basically killed the campaign. So basically, when you got to that point, you still earned XP. There were still levels you could play of Immortals. But you could create your own powers. So they had their own... They weren't spells, but they were... because you were demigods, they were abilities that you could do. But there were rules, basic rules for creating your own, and my players broke the game with this. They created a ability called Summon Beholder, which allowed them to summon a beholder. They also created an ability called Beholder Drop Dead. I can guess you might be able to see where this is going. So basically, whenever they wanted to level up, they just decided to create an almost infinite number of beholders, kill them, and gain the XP. Oh, there you go. And that's basically what killed that particular campaign in the end. Although the Immortal rules weren't great anyway. What I really liked about this particular system was just how simple it was. I don't think I could do it justice now. As much as I like the idea of a simple system, I also think that once you've been role-playing for any length of time, you need a certain amount of complexity in your game system. You need something a bit more. So it might be something I could run. Actually, I don't even know whether I still own my basic D&D stuff. Probably not after all this time. But it's the sort of thing you could probably use to run for preteens, or maybe someone who was interested in getting into role-playing games but didn't know enough about it and didn't want to get swamped. Something else that I really liked about it, and I've never seen anywhere as good, is, as I mentioned, the campaign rules had rules for you could govern your kingdom, sort of thing. Once you hit 9th, you could build a keep or a wizard's tower or what have you, and you could have hirelings, and you had this really simple but workable random events table for your kingdom or for the lands that you controlled, and it was basically a list of things with a percentage chance. But I've never found a sort of downtime kingdom random event table or system that worked quite as well as this one did. It always seems like they put too much effort into it. So yeah, we played this for probably about a year, maybe 18 months, absolutely tops. Actually, thinking about it, yeah, probably was about 18 months before I decided to get my hands on AD&D First Edition, and when we basically moved to that, probably about another couple years. Well, again, probably about 18 months, maybe 2 years tops. I have a lot of good memories of basic D&D. I couldn't tell you any of their character names or anything like that. or any of the cool experiences we had with the game. But then I think that's because once we got into AD&D, second edition primarily, I think that's where our gaming focus was, and I've got a lot more memories of things in that. I think Basic D&D went on to have a couple more editions. It definitely had one in the early 90s where they basically condensed everything, and I think there might have been another one a few years later, but I only ever played the Red Box Basic Edition set from the 80s, and they were some good times. And it's kind of weird in a way, because as I just said, there was a really good basic system, but simpler systems now don't grab me. Pardon me, which I find a little odd. But I'm going to touch on that when I get to the 4th and 5th edition video. So there. So thank you for joining me on this little bit of a trip down memory lane for me. Basic D&D was one of my favourites, and it's one of the games that really got me into the hobby. So if you've had any experience with Basic D&D, any of the Basic D&Ds, even the original, if you ever played that, let me know in the comments below, or do a video response. I'm being yelled at by the cat, so I will make a move. But yeah, drop me a comment below, do a video response, whatever, and we'll see if we can get a discussion going. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Good gaming.